Right now, as you're watching this, the United States and Israel may already be preparing to bomb Iran's power grid. Multiple news organizations are reporting it. Nobody, including some of the reporters covering it, can agree on whether the order has actually been given. That gap between being planned and already ordered is exactly where this story sits, and it's worth understanding why that gap matters so much. Here's the setup. This war between the United States, Israel, and Iran began on February 28th, when coordinated strikes hit Iranian military and government targets, killing the country's supreme leader in those opening strikes. Iran responded with missiles and drones aimed at Israel and at American allies across the region. In early April, the U.S. and Iran announced a 2-week ceasefire, but within hours Israeli strikes on Lebanon strained that agreement, and the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah continued even as the core U.S.-Iran truce technically held. That ceasefire didn't last as a broader peace. It became one more phase in a war that keeps finding new fronts. This week alone gave us 2 clear signs of how far the front lines have moved. A drone strike hit 2 ships at the Egyptian port of Damietta, prompting the Arab League's Secretary General to condemn what he called cowardly attempts to expand the scope of the conflict in the region. No group claimed responsibility and no deaths were reported, but the location matters. Egypt has stayed outside the direct fighting until now. Separately, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia carried out joint strikes on Iranian allied forces inside Iraq, marking one of the clearest signs yet that Gulf Arab states are moving from quiet support toward direct participation. 5 months later, this hasn't wound down. It's escalated, and it keeps escalating in ways that pull in countries that weren't part of the original fight. Now, on August 1st, we have a new development, and this is where we need to slow down and be precise because the reporting itself is contested. CBS News, citing multiple sources, reports that the U.S. and Israel are planning what could be one of the harshest bombing campaigns yet, against Iran's energy infrastructure, power plants, oil refineries, the kind of targets that don't just hit military capacity. They hit ordinary life, electricity, fuel, heating, hospitals running on backup power. According to CBS's sources, strikes could begin as early as this weekend. But CBS also reports something important. President Trump has not yet given final approval. 2 of their sources specifically named power plants and refineries as likely targets, and one source said several of Trump's own political advisors pushed back hard. Here's where it gets genuinely uncertain, and here's a correction to make on our own reporting. The already ordered claim is weaker than it looked at first. The Wall Street Journal, citing separate U.S. officials, had reported that Trump ordered the strikes, framing the goal as forcing Iran into surrender. But now we have something more solid. Israel's own Defense Minister, Israel Katz, on the record, said the U.S. is not approving it at this time. That's a named official directly contradicting the idea that this has already been ordered. The weight of reporting leans toward still being planned. We're updating our own framing accordingly because that's what this channel does when new reporting clarifies an earlier gap. What we do have on the record, directly from Trump himself. He said the U.S. would hit Iran very hard, adding that at some point Iran would say it can't take any more. He was also asked whether there's any path back to diplomacy. His answer, word for word, I think we just want to win. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt reinforced that position, saying Iran will not be allowed a nuclear weapon on this president's watch. Those are on-the-record statements from the president and his own spokesperson. Whatever you make of them, they're not in dispute. There's also a detail worth flagging. Part of the discussion was about wrapping up strikes before financial markets open Monday morning, because of concern over the economic fallout. That's a level of calculation that tells you this isn't a spontaneous decision. It's being planned around the global economy's own clock. Now let's put both sides on the table. The American and Israeli position is that Iran's continued resistance justifies escalating pressure until its capacity to fight breaks. Trump has separately claimed Iran's Navy and Air Force have been obliterated, going as far as saying Iran has no planes left at all. That's his characterization. It has not been independently verified, so we're presenting it as his claim, not as a confirmed assessment. Iran's side is less detailed right now. A senior official said Tehran has prepared a comprehensive response plan for American recklessness, reportedly including plans to target energy infrastructure in Israel and U.S.-linked facilities. Iran is signaling it won't be a one-sided exchange. And there's a third voice. Israel's own government. One official told CBS that Israel is not aware of any decision to restart military operations. and that Israel hasn't formally been asked to take part. That's a notable gap between what U.S. sources describe and what Israeli sources confirm. 3 different parties, 3 different versions of how settled this is, and that gap alone tells you this story is still moving, not finished. So why does this matter beyond the headlines? A few concrete reasons. If energy infrastructure gets hit, oil markets react immediately. We're already watching Brent crude climb through July, on pace for roughly a 23% increase across the month. A strike on refineries and power plants moves prices faster and further than a strike on military targets because markets price in the risk of disruption. Add to that Iran's earlier moves restricting traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important oil shipping routes on the planet. And you have 2 separate pressure points on global energy supply converging in the same week. Analysts expect prices to keep climbing. It also raises the humanitarian stakes. Power plants don't just run air conditioners. They run water treatment, hospitals, and food storage. And it tests something we've been watching, whether this stays a U.S.-Israel-Iran conflict or pulls in U.S. allies in the Gulf who've stayed on the sidelines. So where does this go from here? A few honest possibilities because nobody covering this credibly claims to know for certain. 1. Trump holds off. The internal opposition from his own political advisors wins out for now, and this becomes a plan discussed but not executed. Under this path, expect renewed pressure toward diplomacy, even if Trump's comments suggest he isn't currently interested in that route. 2. The strikes go ahead roughly as CBS describes them. Time to wrap before Monday's market open, hitting power plants and refineries. Under this path, the war continues at its current intensity. Oil prices likely spike briefly and then stabilize, and the conflict stays contained. 3. Iran follows through on its warning. Strikes expand to energy infrastructure on both sides, and what has been a contained war moves into spillover. This is also the scenario with the least confirmed evidence right now, so we're clear that we're flagging it as a possibility analysts take seriously. We genuinely don't know which of these we'll be reporting on next. CBS sourcing and Israel's defense minister point toward not yet approved. We're telling you that update honestly, rather than quietly leaving our earlier framing uncorrected. We're not going to pick a version and present it as fact. We'll be tracking this through the weekend, and if any of today's reporting gets confirmed, corrected, or contradicted, we'll bring you that update directly. Whatever happens between now and Monday, the underlying pattern is the same. A plan gets discussed, reporters disagree, the world reacts to uncertainty. If breakdowns like this, honest about what's confirmed and what isn't, are useful to you, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.